What is good, Spuds? This is Jesse White here. This is the Needless Potatoes Podcast. Thank you for joining me on this beautiful Friday here in Ada, Oklahoma, or wherever you're listening to it from. My guests today are my older brother, Jamison White, and my brother-in-law, Jacob Proctor. And both of these guys are two accomplished EDM DJs, or electronica, if you will, electronica DJs. And I sit down with both of these guys, and we talk about the ins and outs of being a good DJ, what music to play, all the great stuff. And Jacob actually has an album out on Spotify called "Go to the End," and it's if you search Jacob Proctor or "Go to the End" on Spotify, it'll definitely pull up and give it a listen and shoot him a message if you like it, and if you don't like it, shoot him a message anyways. And my older brother Jamison, he's actually opened for Loverboy, all this great stuff. So they're two awesome great guys. We sit down and we just kind of hash it out over all the great things about electronica. So once again, this is DJ Jamison White and DJ Jacob Proctor, and I've been Jesse White here. Thank you so much.
Hello, everybody. This is Jesse White here of the Needless Potatoes Podcast. I am joined by my big brother, Jamison White,
Howdy, y'all.
and my brother in law, Jacob Proctor. How are you two doing, guys?
I'm doing good.
I feel great. I feel good. How about you, sir?
I'm doing good. We're here in your apartment, Jamison's apartment, here in beautiful Tulsa, Oklahoma. And so this episode is about EDM music and EDM DJs. So we can start with you, Jacob. You can kind of just give me the history of how you got into EDM music, how you became a DJ, all that good stuff.
Well, started back in probably '93. I started getting to the club scene, and I started DJing just house parties and stuff. Then I got bored with that, and so I started producing my own music and started getting equipment. And all the way up to 2015, I released my first CD, and
And what's that called?
Go to the End.
Okay, and where can people find that?
They can Spotify, all the streaming service available out there.
Okay, nice. And you also have another project called Space Junk, is that right?
Yes.
And that's on Spotify as well?
Yes, but I had to take it down because somebody else's name already took that name. So I'm trying to come up with a new name for
A
it.
new name. So we'll take a poll in the comments of what the new name will be.
All right.
What about you, big brother, Mr. Jameson?
Oh, well, it all began in 1974 when I was born, and I came out of the womb with a pair of headphones on my head, and then I just sort of went downhill from there. But no, realistically, it was a time in the mid 90s when there was a DJ called John Kelly. He had a CD that was released in Hastings in Stillwater, Oklahoma, and I was just kind of, at that time looking for different types of music to kind of get into. So I just kind of, listened to that CD and I was blown away. It was just something different, exciting. It had a lot of energy to it. I loved the way it sounded, and it was a guy actually mixing records. So it was a lot of things that intrigued me about EDM music. So from there, I just kind of, started picking up different CDs of different bands like Crystal Method, Fatboy Slim, Chemical Brothers, and it all kind of started there and just kind of progressed into me becoming a DJ and started making mixes and then getting residencies at clubs and
What are some of the clubs that you DJ'd at?
oh well, let's see, the
Some of
first
the more
club,
prominent
yeah.
ones.
Oh, prominent ones. Well, I've DJ'd at the historic Cain's ballroom in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I've also DJ'd for a man named Steve Kitchell who owned numerous clubs, Club Millennium, which was a big one. I've also worked for a man named Tony Henry, who also had numerous clubs. The last residency gig that I had at that time was working at the Sky Bar. I was a resident DJ down there for 4 years, DJing in Oklahoma City and in Bricktown. So,
And you actually opened for the band Working for the Weekend. What's that band called?
yeah. So part of working in the scene. I did gigs, not just that were electronic, but also just opening for bands and other DJs and stuff. So I got the opportunity and chance to opened up for Loverboy in Tulsa, Oklahoma, several years ago. That was interesting.
Awesome. Really cool. Do they have any other notable songs besides Working for the Weekend?
Uh, Loving every minute of it. One of Jesse's favorite, or Jacob's favorite songs, and
I don't think so.
as a matter of fact, I think he did a remix of that, but he's not going to release it. It's just he wants to keep it
Because
to himself.
he's modest.
Yeah, he's very modest with that stuff.
So what kind of goes into making EDM music? Since there is really no instrumentals, as in like drums or typical guitar or bass or anything like that, what kind of goes into making EDM music? We can start with you, Jacob.
Well, you have synthesizers and drum machines. That's how we used to do it back in the 90s. Use synthesizers, sequencers, and drum machines. Then the computer age came up, and it's called a DAW system, what we use now, and digital audio workstation. And then we start out using the drum machines. We can record into the drum machine, or record from the drum machine into the computer system, and use synthesizers for bass lines and just a little bit of everything like that. And the DAWs now have VSTs, which you can use with them too. It's called virtual instrument machines. And
Right. So, and maybe a more specific question is, what goes into kind of making your music? Like, do you typically start with a drum machine, like a beat maker, and then you layer on top of that, or do you have an idea when you go inside of
he likes to go to the boardroom, and then that's where he comes up with all his ideas, and then once he comes out of the boardroom after he's done his paperwork and
because you're engaged to mine and Jamison's beautiful sister Chancy.
right.
Do you get with her and you bounce ideas off of each other? Does she have any input?
Oh no, she can't stand the music.
Okay, but she did come to your show because you were nice enough to come down and DJ a benefit show that I had for the Pause there in Ada. You came down and I know you played some music.
It's a
You
great
played,
organization.
yeah, terrific organization. So definitely go out and support those guys. Pause there in Ada. But you were saying that you kind of go in and with a central idea, or is it over a drum or?
Yeah. Sometimes I just start messing around, just playing melodies on the keys. Then sometimes I start with just a drum pattern, and it just goes from there. Then go from drums to bass and melodies, or vice versa. Pads, strings.
Very cool. What about you, big brother? What kind of goes into? You got to get kind of close to the mic when you talk.
Close to the mic. How's that? So, well, I had a different approach than Jacob did. I've known Jacob for a long time. When he first started mixing and getting into writing music and producing music, and he started with actually hardware where he had numerous keyboards that he worked with, which were very, very, cutting edge at the time. And so I went a separate route. I kind of started with the software. I would use various programs like Fruity Loops, Cakewalk, Acid, and I would do my own remixes sometimes. So for the club, I'd add my own beats, to already, songs that were already out there, and I'd remix them. And some of the original stuff I would do would just kind of just be if I'm writing a club song or if I'm writing slow stuff. A lot of it would just, I put together on Fruity Loops, which was my favorite program at the time that I would use to write. So I would kind of use software versus hardware, but it's just that because of the fact I didn't have access to a keyboard or I didn't have the funds to do, to buy a keyboard. So it's just kind of where I got my start, and I've written, quite a few things, but nothing that's ever been really released. I just kind of really write it for myself just to express something. But anyway, the challenge was my fiance asked me to write a song about her, which I did. That kind of started it all.
And I know that you, and it might have been an old episode, but in a podcast previous, you had told a story where you were at a party and you kind of DJ'd there where you were just pulling CDs off and you were putting different CDs into different machines. Can you kind of touch on that story a little bit?
Yeah, well, that's actually kind of the birth of DJ Jam is on. That's my name, Jamison. It's kind of funny how that comes together. But yeah, I was at a fraternity party in Stillwater, and the dudes were, the guys were Metallica and all this kind of stuff, Nickelback and playing stuff, and the girls wanted to dance, and so I just kind of walked up to the guy in charge. Said, hey, dude, let me take over the music, and you go enjoy your keg and your ping pong. What do you call that? What's that?
Beer
game?
pong.
Beer pong. There you
Yeah.
go. Jesse knows well about that stuff. So talk to him later. He'll
Used
get
to.
with you on the skills and technical.
Used to.
Use a beer pong. But anyway, all
That's-
jokes aside,
I was pretty good back then too.
he was. He had like a trophy above his bedroom wall there for a while, or something like that. Anyway, so.
But continue with your story.
So I just kind of took over the CD player. There's only one at the time, but I would, people would come up and ask me for songs, but I would just say, hey, do you have that CD? If you do, bring it in and I'll play it for you. So eventually people were bringing me and back at the time, CDs were the thing before streaming, before the iPod or any of this kind of stuff. People are using real CDs, putting them in their players in their cars and listening to them, after the cassette deck, of course. And so they would bring them in, and I would just kind of line them up. So after a song was played, I'd take it out, put the next one in. And so I had this flow of music that was kind of happening. There was a pause in between, which was the downside, but the good news was, people were going to get to hear what they wanted to hear. And that's kind of the gist about being a DJ is you're playing music for people. You're creating an atmosphere. You're making people have an enjoyable time, and that's the whole point of it. I feel as a DJ or just as a musician, expressing music and making people hear what you have to say or feel a certain way. So the party was a success, and then everybody thought at the end of the night, say, hey man, you're a good DJ. So not trying to make this a lengthy answer, but I got another CD player. So then I had 2 CD players for the next party. So then I was able to kind of rotate back and forth, and that was just kind of how it's all started.
Right.
So,
And then that was essentially the catalyst to actually becoming is the term like party DJ or is it club DJ or?
It just kind of depends. It's a DJ disc jockey is kind of a loose term, because you could be a radio disc jockey, you could be a wedding disc jockey, you could be a club disc jockey, Club Universe disc jockey.
Yeah.
That was that place. Yeah, let's not bring that up, Jacob. That was kind of hey, I in defense, I had one of my favorite DJs come to that club, and he actually danced to one of the songs I played. So it was kind of actually like a wow, cool moment,
Wow, so you got some props from a big timer, huh?
I did at that time, sorta. But
Loverboy didn't give you those props.
Those guys didn't even want to come meet me or talk to me. So,
Oh well.
But I didn't want to meet them either because they were already drunk and had all these girls hanging all over them, 50-year-old women.
Well, that was because that was in the 2000s, right?
So, it was a long time ago.
So they probably weren't even remotely attracted back then. That's all right. They won't hear this anyways. So, but well, awesome. So, what are some of some of the more prominent EDM styles? Because is the term EDM electronic dance music, or is there another term? Because I don't want to disrespect you by saying like techno or something like that, but.
Well, go ahead, Jacob. You can give them the breakdown of how what it was called originally to what it is now and why it is. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, back in the day, we just called it techno music.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, or electronica.
Oh, okay.
That's what I prefer is electronica.
Electronica, okay. So EDM is kind of like a new term, right?
Yeah, it's a new generation term.
Oh, I got you. Okay, cool. But
Well, here's this. Let me give the analogy. So if anybody's listening to this that doesn't know or kind of is unfamiliar with EDM, so if you kind of relate it to in the same way like rock music. Well, rock music is a broad genre. So then you have subgenres, which is like you got punk rock, soft rock, country rock, southern rock, heavy metal, thrash. So you got different styles of rock, but it all follows under the rock category. It goes for the same with EDM music. There's different styles of EDM music. You've got dubstep, you've got trance, you've got
house.
House is where it all began. Actually, we can talk a little bit about that in here in just a second. But yeah, house was definitely a big player in the pioneer movement of where techno is today because of house music. But so just various different styles, and just they all have different sounds to them, just like rock music or rap or any other kind of style.
Nice. Do you concur, Jacob? Is that?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
And and you do and what is the subgenre of electronica that you do?
Well, it's a mixture of progressive house and melodic deep house.
Right. And does that differ from your like go to the end stuff, the Jacob Proctor stuff? Does that differ heavily from like your space junk stuff?
No, that's kind of separate. Space Junk's more kind of a synth wave
Okay.
meets electronica, I guess. Yeah,
Okay.
kind of space music, spacey music.
Oh, okay. So it kind of really sets like an atmosphere type of thing.
Yeah.
Atmospheric style. It's very good if you guys get a chance to
I'll,
listen to it.
I'll have it up and maybe next month I'll put it back up online.
Very cool. And Jameson, you were kind of we touched on the term techno or the house music. Kind of can you kind of give us a little bit of that, a little bit of history of the house?
Sure. So in the late '80s, as I understand it, there was a style of music that was coming out called new beat, and it was actually it was kind of made for the dance floor. What DJs were noticing in the '80s was when they would have the ability to BPM, beats per minute, match music, that way, counting the beats, seeing how fast or slow a song was, then they could kind of line those songs up and kind of match the beats where you have a continuous flow of music. And they were doing that in the late '70s, and so DJs were mixing these records, these disco records. But so new beat kind of took on like an '80s disco sound, and then it progressed to house music. House music is a very soulful kind of a disco-y feel with a 4/4 beat to it, and cymbals, so it sounds kind of disco-y and whatnot.
So is that the term that like people dubbed techno was like the 90s?
Early '90s. So early '90s house music was prominent. It came from Chicago, is where it originated, or to my understanding. So you had DJs early on that were actually mixing house music, creating house music, and then from there it just started progressing. So it's like house was kind of the rock of the foundation of it all, and then it kind of branched out to other different types of house music, different types of other subgenres, like I mentioned earlier. So. What was your question?
Oh, just that. This kind of the history of house music.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. So it just kind of progressed in the mid '90s. Then they started calling it techno rave. Rave was a big term back in the mid '90s, and rave was kind of like these parties, these underground parties where these kids go. You hear this underground techno rave music. So you had CDs that would come out called Rave Till Dawn and whatnot. You could hear the progression from how house music started incorporating different synthesizers at the time. I don't know, Jacob, maybe you can touch on that, like the type of instruments they used to kind of create more of the rave sound versus the house sound.
Was that did that come from Mort Garrison? Remember that guy? The guy that did the album for the Plants, music for Plants.
That's kind of more like, I guess, like Tangerine Dream style. It's kind of more atmospheric stuff. There's definitely a distinction between what he did and kind of what rave music was.
Got to get closer to
which was actually what me and Jacob got into originally when I met Jacob at the time. Part of it was rave, but the other part to the EDM music scene was industrial music, which we'll talk about here in just a few minutes. But what was some of the instruments that they used to create rave? Do you remember? Was it an 808 or?
Well, it's mostly 909 rolling drum machines with probably Juno 106 synthesizers. It just varies. I mean, there's hundreds of different, synthesizers back then, and now it's like thousands of synthesizers. What's out there now? But I like to add that techno music actually started way back in '78 or '9. Kraftwerk. There's a band from Germany called Kraftwerk.
Okay, there we go.
They had experimental sound back then, but it kind of formed in the '80s to more of a dance sound than '80s, than the '90s, and 2000s.
Oh, very cool. And that's kind of where people get. Now, did it come from like synth rock, like that kind of '80s new wave stuff, like Flock of Seagulls and those kind of guys?
Yeah, some of it was influenced by them. Yeah.
Okay. Now, is it like and you were saying like the sympathizers and drums and everything? Is there like an instrument that you play to kind of get that sound? Like, do you play the synthesizer? Do you play the drums?
Yeah, I play the synthesizer. I can tweak the sounds using various filters on it and what's called oscillators and knobs, and then you can create your own sounds on them.
Uh huh.
Then you can play them like just like a regular, not a pianist, but just chords and
I got you. You can
yeah,
kind of bend the notes
yeah,
and things like that. Very cool. And Jameson, you were mentioning something about industrial music because I know that like Nine Inch Nails and Godhead and
Yeah.
some of those other bands, they were kind of really
Yeah.
popular with the industrial metal.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, but the thing about that with these bands, where they were incorporating synthesizers, just like Moby and just like some of these other guys early on, Fatboy Slim and in the '90s and stuff like that. But well in the early '80s, you even had bands like Depeche Mode and New Order,
right.
Erasure, that were
Frontline
kind of-
Assembly, right?
that were Frontline Assembly. So it's like so Frontline Assembly was kind of like the early on stages of industrial music, which is a very heavy, dark, aggressive style of music. And me and Jacob both one of her favorite bands is Frontline Assembly. They're an industrial band, and they used their music is based around a lot of synthesizer sounds, as well as live drums and a vocalist singing lyrics. And so, like you said, Jesse, bands like Nine Inch Nails, and Came FDM, My Life with the Thrill Kill Cult. There's a lot out there. It's just what's great about it. There's so much out there that just is really good. But
A lot of them are influenced by '80s new wave and punk music.
right.
Oh, really? Punk
Right.
music. That's cool.
Yeah. Punk music does have a play in it. There's actually some stuff that comes back, bases off the sounds of punk and the energy that punk produced. Which was late '70s. Bands like I don't know, punk music. It's Misfits and are you yawning over there, sir? Are we boring you?
No, I didn't want to yawn into the mic. I didn't want
Are
to.
you tired? Did you tie on a long one last night?
No. No, I was actually preparing for this episode.
Partying and ate it too much.
No. None of that. Not anymore.
Just
But so was Frontline essentially how you two guys met?
Yes, because there was a club called Icon here in Tulsa, and I would go there religiously, and then the DJ would mix it up. He would play a mix of techno, industrial, EDM, alternative '90s music, and so I'd be out there getting down, and Jacob would be there, and then eventually I just seeing him, and he seemed like a pretty cool guy. He didn't look like he was a mass murderer or a serial killer. So I just
We don't know that yet.
And no, I didn't get there before the doors open.
he'd be sitting on his Camaro posing for the girls with his guns out, about 8:30. So
8:30, huh? Well, all right.
no, that was me. That's how I knew he was there at 8:30 because I'd be there at 8:20. Waiting for him to open the doors so I could get in there and get my bottled water.
So can you both of you guys kind of talk about your first DJ gig that you've ever had? Like the first time you ever really felt like a DJ, like one of the first gigs. We can start with you, Jacob.
Well, I'm not on Jamison's level because I never really
Right.
played in the clubs, but
Like maybe a show or you got to play at a
Yeah.
venue or.
it's probably. Well, I have to bring up Club Universe again.
Go ahead. There's a lot of good things came from that little hole in the
Yeah.
wall place. So
I used to bring my turntables up and this whatnot. Just started spinning there. And of course, I was playing like house parties and stuff a little bit. So
Do you remember your first like paying gig that you've had from like Indian music and things like that?
I haven't had one yet.
Oh,
Just tips.
okay. Well,
Made $80 in tips in one night.
well, no, like I paid you for coming down to do my benefit
Well, yeah,
show.
that's true. Yeah, that's true.
Oh, so that was your first paying gig.
Yes.
Hooray. What about you there, Jamison? DJ Jamison?
Man. Well, yeah. Well, it's just so much to DJing on the DJ end of it. It's a skill set in itself. Learning to mix music and learning what styles to mix together and learning what the crowd likes and keep the energy going where people are interested engaged in what you're playing and having a good time. So it's kind of more to it than just being up there hitting the play button. So early on, I felt like the music was worthy. I did get paid. First gigs was like Club Universe. I got paid like $50 a night. But as I got better, then I started asking for more money. So when I moved to Tulsa, I actually started my own night, retro '80s night on a Thursday night, and so I started from $75, and then I doubled it to 150 after about 6 months of playing, and we had a following of like about 100 people in the beginning, and then it got up to about one night at Thanksgiving, it was like we had 900 people that came through the door at the Roadkill Heaven in Tulsa, and then from there I had the confidence and the talent and the skills as a DJ to go on and pursue other interests. So then I was DJing at Club Millennium and making $200 a night, and then at Sky Bar down in Oklahoma City as a paying gig, it was $300 a night. So I was working Thursday, Friday, Saturday, making almost $1,000 a week, just DJing. So it was just it's always something I've enjoyed. A lot of fun. I've played other gigs like weddings and Christmas parties and whatnot. So, but the key to all this is, especially in Tulsa, is you have to be versatile. You have to, because there's not enough people to support one type of genre. Like if you were to go to Los Angeles, let's say, there would be a club that would be a strictly EDM club where you could hear strictly that type of music. Unfortunately, in Tulsa, it doesn't work that way. So you have to, if you want to get paid, you kind of have to not really sell yourself out, but you have to be versatile. You have to be able to play other styles. So that's why I was always able to have a job over the 20 years that I DJ'd, because I was willing to play hip hop even though I hated it.
You don't like any hip hop?
Oh man, I don't hate hip hop. No, there's a few songs that I like, but it's just not me. Like my brother Quana, it's his thing. He loves it. Just like and he looks at techno and kind of, it's not my thing, brother. And I get it. I understand it. People. It's whatever music speaks to you is what it comes down to. And for me, it's techno, and I love it. So I'll probably be 80 years old, bobbing my head to some turntables. I'm playing music in my bedroom.
Still spinning techno, huh?
Throwing down some DJ Jacob Proctor, Go to the End remixes or something,
Yeah,
So-
absolutely. Well, can you, either of you or both of you rather, can you kind of talk about maybe and this is a part of the show that people either love or hate, but can you kind of talk about like a bad night where you played and you were just like, maybe something didn't go right, and then maybe pair it with a good night where you had everything going right. So
Okay.
good, yeah.
Oh, well, there's a few times actually. One time in specific, doing a wedding gig, I had the main song when the bride comes down the dun, dun,
Oh yeah,
dun, dun, dun,
wedding
dun.
song.
Yeah, so the wedding song. So anyway, it started skipping on my CD.
Ooh.
Yeah. So she was walking down, and I just burned that CD, and it was a clean. There's no scratches on that, and I don't know why it happened or how it happened, but of course, as soon as that starts skipping, I mean, everybody stops and they look at the DJ, and
Yeah.
so here I am. I'm just like, oh my god, this is horrible. What I'm gonna do? So I just stopped it. And then I got on the microphone and said, "Okay, everybody, I deeply apologize for this. We're gonna rewind this." So I made everybody go back to the beginning. I made the bride go back with her father, and then I said, "Okay, everybody, if you're videotaping this, let's re-record this." So
What how close was she to the altar?
I mean, pretty close. About to almost finish. Yeah. So it was devastating because I'm embarrassed. But at the same time, it's like, look, I don't have time to cry about it or any of this kind of stuff. But how can we handle the situation? So I just said, let's start over. And everybody's cool with that. So the photographer got to get in and get some better shots. The videographer got to get in and re-record some stuff. So at the end, everybody was like, what you did was good because, it kind of saved that moment.
Right.
And he didn't just go through and just have that skipping dun, 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 and fade it out, and then that actually be what that moment was.
Right. So when you played that CD the second time, did it work?
It did work.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I think in that case, I don't know, the universe has a way of testing people, and for me as a DJ, and another time, I was DJing. I was just having sound problems. There was like the mixer board was cutting out. And so we actually had to do a live transplant. So what that means is, so you got one mixer that's playing music, and then you bring in another mixer, and while that one's mixing and you're trying to play music, this happened about 11 o'clock at night. This was at Club Millennium. So we're switching out mixers, and I'm trying to plug in the next CD player. So that's going to be ready to go. So by the time this one's almost done, then I can hit play, and it'll go through the new mixer. So I've never done that before. So it was a challenge trying to keep it seamless and get out the old mixer that was having shorting out, problems in the sound where you would cut out and cut back on, and it was just really horrible. And so I was able to do that. So it's just, but then, times where it was just magical. I had my manager at Skybar come up to me one time. She's like, Jameson, you got to get these people off the dance floor. I said, why? It's because you are not creating bar sales. Nobody's going to the bar getting drinks because everybody's dancing. So she was pissed at me that I was keeping people on the floor dancing.
That you were too good.
I was too good, and
Too
people
good at
just
his
wanted
job.
to dance to every beat that I was playing. And
What were you playing that night?
Well, I mean, it's just a mix. I mean, it was a Sky Bar, so I would mix, everything from top 40 to hip hop to, then about midnight I go into like a techno set. I'd just play like for about 30 minutes of straight, techno. I do like Darude, or I would do, Blow Your Mind by Lock and Load. That's an old track, but I mean, I'm looking back, it was like, fresh, cool stuff. So, but yeah, so I'd have to slow it down with I actually did one time with a slow song where I just kind of, and people were like, I said, okay, people, we got drink specials, blah, 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 go tip your bartenders. And people actually got the hint, and they would, it kind of killed the dance floor. But, so it's just the challenge of it all, really, because you're an artist. I know that musicians being on stage, encounter problems just like that. And they have situations where they got to kind of work through it, figure it out, and bounce back. And in any profession, turning a negative into a positive really is what what
Right.
you can do.
So eventually those people went out and got drinks then, huh?
They did, and then it was even better because, they got to come back on the floor, and the bartenders were happy because the bartenders recognized that there was a problem.
Right.
And they weren't getting tips, or they weren't making drinks, and they recognized me as a person that I actually gave a shit, or I cared about,
Right.
their benefit. So that was cool. I got cool points with them, and after that, they're, oh man, dude, you're the only DJ that's ever done that actually
Right.
stopped the dance floor and made people go get drinks and then come back, because other DJs, they don't.
So
pay attention.
what's usually the dynamic that goes into that, or is it usually like what do you warm up with? Like what's the one song that when you throw it on, like that as soon as you put it down, like people are gonna start dancing and moving? Like what's the go-to?
Absolutely, every DJ has his staples, and you're only as good as your music. So Jacob's been to me at the clubs a lot of times, and he's heard me DJ. In any crowd you play, there's always a few key songs that you play them, they will dance. One of them is "Staying Alive" by the Bee Gees.
Oh, okay.
Vanilla Ice, Ice Ice Baby.
Okay.
Tone Loc, Wild Thing. I mean, these are just like stupid classic, hits that people heard in high school. But if you're there to hear EDM music, or even if you throw, one of those on, people will still dance.
Yeah. What's the name of this video that we're watching?
It's Boris Brejcha live at Tomorrowland, and it's actually, this whole set is all music that he's created, which is unique because when I first started, most DJs will drop maybe a track or two of their own and then mix other, artists' music with it. But Boris he's just killing it. This whole set just is amazing. I haven't been impressed with a DJ in a long time. And him and a guy named Ben Bomer, who I'm actually going to go see April the 11th. He's playing in Denver, Colorado. Cindy and I have got tickets to go see him. He's doing a world tour. He's released his first album called Breathing, and he's 24 years old, and he's just killing it. He's like a Paul Van Dyke or a Tiesto, and I'm just really excited to go see that show. But anyway, sorry to interrupt, but I was just kind of
No, I found in my limited view of electronica or EDM music is if you get like girls out there dancing, women out there dancing, having a good time, almost often guys will come out there and they'll dance with
That's
them.
the whole point of it. Yeah,
Yeah,
in most situations, unless you're in a club in LA, or if you're looking on this video here with Boris, you see the people they're already accustomed to like dancing by themselves. You
Right.
can see them; they're dancing on their own. They don't need a partner or anybody. They're just enjoying the music. So it's just the same in the clubs. You get a group of girls out there dancing, and you get the guys that want to follow.
Right, and we're about on the 36 mark of this video. So if you're kind of, you can kind of cue this up and watch it, or check it out on your own time. It's just a big group of people. They're all dancing. You got all kinds of what Jamison said. You all got kind of walks of life that are dancing, that are having a good time. So it seems like everyone's bringing everyone together. But yeah. So now, is there like one song that people will request? Like, because I know with like musicians, they'll yell like. Maybe the cliche answer is like Freebird, but they'll yell a song. But is there a song where you have a guy at the DJ booth saying, "Hey man, play some Metallica. Hey man, play this song. Hey man, play some Leonard Skinner."
I'm gonna give it to Jacob because I feel like I'm stealing the show. And Jacob's done some DJ gigs, so I'm curious to hear some of his requests that he's gotten.
Well, we'll start with you,
DJ.
Jacob, and then we'll kick it over to Jamison.
Probably Underworld. Cowgirl.
That's a good song.
Yeah, that's the most requested electronic song.
I don't even know what that is. So
yeah, it's techno. Underworld is a group, and they've been around. How long, Jacob?
Since they started out as a rock band, and in the late '80s, I'd say.
Okay.
And they switched over to electronic music in the '90s.
And then if you watch the movie Hackers, that came out in the '90s, we're talking about '90s culture. One of the iconic movies is Hackers. It's a group of these kids that actually are super elite, and they go in and they hack, computer systems and stuff like that. So it was a really cool, cutting edge movie. It has Angelina Jolie and Johnny. What is that guy's name? Johnny. The guy played Dade, the blonde.
I can't remember.
I can't remember anyway. But Angelina Jolie's hot in it anyway. She's short haircut. But the song Cowgirl is in that movie. So it's actually featured in that movie. And there's a lot of other great tracks that were early, mid-'90s, that were also featured that were good. For me, it depended on the gig, the most requested song. But it's funny that you say that, Jesse, about, hey, man, can you play some Metallica? Or, hey, dude, you going to play some Skinner? And it's kind of funny because, here's how I would handle it. It's like, yeah, man, I already played it. And then they go, oh, well, you played it again? And it's like, well, here's my business card. You hire me, and I'll come to your house, and I'll play some Skinner all night, brother.
I'll play whatever you want, man.
And then I'll go, hey, man, is there anything else I can play for you? And then I'll kind of make some suggestions. Like I throw out Kid Rock, because I know Kid Rock is still kind of hillbilly or kind of country rock. And then, oh, yeah, that's cool. And, it's not Leonard Skinner, but I find something that's relatable.
You might have found the only Kid Rock fan in Oklahoma now.
Yeah, right. No, but they were out there at the time, so that's just kind of how I'd handle it, especially, for really strange song requests that I know that I would not play. I would still try to handle it, diplomatically.
No one ever tries to throw down some Rhinestone Cowboy or anything?
That's never happened. No, not to me
Well,
once.
that's a great song,
It'd
brother.
be cool, though. You like a Rhinestone
Cowboy.
Some kind of crazy beat on
Yeah.
it, maybe.
Well,
Remix it.
I don't know. Rhinestone Cowboys, one of my favorite songs. Hot take. Glenn Robertson. Check it out.
I didn't know that.
That's an excellent song.
Well,
it's about redemption.
That might be something I can look into for getting for you for Christmas this year.
Well, yeah.
Might be
No, it's
not a guitar, but it's a great piece of history, I suppose.
well, it is amazing. Also, that song has some history because that was also a favorite song of our grandmother, the late great Dorita Horse. She really liked that song.
She did. Okay, I didn't know
Yeah,
that either.
so maybe it's family lineage, but no, that song's excellent. Glenn Robertson is excellent. But just kind of transitioning here. What is and we had mentioned clubs and stuff, and I think me and Jacob talked about this a little bit on the way over to your apartment. But what do you think is because Tulsa's kind of going through this period where people aren't going to clubs, and I think the same thing is happening in England where people just aren't going out and dancing and stuff. What are some of your ideas about that? Like, what do you think is kind of taken away from that? Is it just people wanting to stay at home and be by themselves? Is it?
Well, one thing that I could say is, if you watch the media or watch, what's happening, you had a club in Orlando that got shot up,
Yeah, Club Pulse. Yeah.
That was shot up by a shooter that came and just killed like 50-something people. I don't know if that discourages people, but there's not just that club, but there's been other clubs that have been, in Paris and other places all over the world that have been, somebody was assassinating all these innocent people that were just enjoying themselves. So I don't know if maybe that has a bearing on it or has anything to do with it. I don't know. Just the interest in the music, I think, can kind of go up and down. I think there's a peak where any kind of style can really be at the height of its career, and it takes a drop. I mean, what's hot in the music scene today, if we're talking about just music in general. I mean, how about you, Jesse? What are you into? Let me ask you a question.
You want to interview me?
Yeah, interview you for a second.
Well,
music.
Well, I'll get to tell this story since I'll embarrass you a little bit. But when back when I think I was 15 or 16, when I was 15, sorry, Jameson had to run to the bathroom. But when I was 15, my big bro Jamison, he actually gave me a burned copy of Appetite for Destruction by Guns N' Roses. And that was one of the first CDs that I actually sat down and listened to. So I listened to it front and back, and just the guitars and the energy and Axl Rose's vocals actually is what kind of gravitated me towards that. And you have Slash on the guitar, you have Duff McKagan, and so you have all this assault of music. You have hair metal at that time. So I was like, oh man, these guys are really impressive. So I went back and I listened to like some of their other stuff, and then I got into like Judas Priest and Warrant, and a little bit of Loverboy, but Warrant, and then eventually I kind of graduated to like Slayer and Metallica and Overkill and Anthrax and Testament and Exodus. So all these like thrash metal bands, and then so there's something about when I heard Slayer that I was like, all right, this is for me. And like one of the first songs I heard was Disciple from the Dracula 2000 soundtrack. So when I heard that opening intro, I was like, yeah, this is it. Like this is for me.
Yeah, brother.
So I kind of went into that, and then that transitioned into like brutal death metal with like Cannibal Corpse and Autopsy, Morbid Angel, 6 Feet Under, and then kind of into today, some good buddies of mine, DJ Bryant and Jeremy Wingard from Oberon. Yeah, shout out to those guys. They kind of got me into like Baroness and the Sword and Kylesa, and then Mastodon, and then so it's kind of going back and forth. It's actually kind of weird because the heavier music I got into, the more I started gravitating to like Glenn Robertson and Hank Williams Sr. and like the Beatles, and so I kind of did the reverse on that. So and I've always been a fan of like hip hop, like Biggie and
yeah, dog.
yeah, Biggie and Tupac and Wu-Tang Clan and KRS-One, Eric B. and Rakim. So, and then even to today, like A$AP Rock is one of my favorite rappers, MF Doom. So yeah, but that kind of is like what I listen to is if it's good. Even some like Lute, who's kind of a new rapper. He's off of Dreamville with J. Cole, and so definitely check out GED by him. But yeah, just kind of a plethora of all kinds of different music and stuff, and that was all inspired by that one little rinky-dink burn CD that Jamison gave me.
Oh man!
So you kind of started it all, yeah.
Well, it was that I gave you that CD, and then for our sister Jincy, I was getting rid of my cassette collection, and I just happened to have a copy of Body Count, which was
nice
Ice-T.
Yeah,
and,
his punk band.
And his punk band. So he had some pretty good. Pretty steamy album names, covers, and songs. So it maybe made Jincy a little bit on the ghetto side. Love you, sister. But
there's nothing wrong with that though.
Good time, yeah.
Yeah, right.
I love my K bitch. I love her when she bleeps me though. I love my KK. That was one of the songs anyway. So I was like, dang, I gave it to Jincy and she was 12 at the time. So hopefully I didn't corrupt her brain.
That's what molded her to who she is
older
today.
Older brothers are there for.
Yeah, but no. Well, and just kind of wrapping up here a little bit. What is some like advice that you would give to some upcoming DJs? And we'll start with you, Jacob.
Well,
You gotta hold the mic a little bit closer.
I'm thinking.
No, you're fine. Got your thinking cap on. It's cool.
I just stay true to what you're doing. Just keep focused, and it's good to take breaks. Because if you keep going, then you're gonna burn out.
Right. Well, I think that's true with any kind of musician or anything. You know, if you're just constantly, you know, playing music, and you're just kind of constantly going, eventually you're gonna like start to kind of hate that process. So
Yeah,
definitely.
I got burned out for 10 years of trying to write music, and I kind of gave it up. Then in 2015, I released my first CD.
Right, and that's called Go to the End, right?
Yes,
And you actually had a follow-up second album, right?
yes.
What's that called?
You know, my mind's blank right now.
Well, regardless, check out Jacob Proctor on Spotify,
Yes.
and you'll be able to pull up Go to the End and the unnamed second album, and then you can patch that over to Space Junk. Check that out as well. What about you, Jamison? Any advice for the young DJs out there?
Oh man, well, you know, when I first started, I had two Sony Walkman CD players that I ran through a $20 Radio Shack mixer when I was playing at Club Universe, and don't let your resources be an obstacle. You know, you just use whatever you can. Actually, the first demo that I recorded for a club, I was applying for the DJ position here in Tulsa, I used a Sony PlayStation and a CD Walkman. And so I actually had the Sony PlayStation hooked up to my television so I could see the tracks that I was selecting to play. And then I had a cassette deck that I recorded my demo on. And it's funny because we you know, full circle, we talked about Frontline Assembly. Well, me and Jacob, we went and I had a chance to see Frontline Assembly play at Cain's Ballroom, where I actually got to DJ after the fact. But because of Bill Lieb, who was one of the founders of Reese Fulber and Bill Lieb, who are the creators of Frontline Assembly, we got to meet Bill Lieb, and I asked Bill Lieb, "Hey, I'm applying for a DJ gig, and it's like, what should I do?" And he goes, "Well, a demo would be good." So
And Bill Lieb is the guy from Frontline Assembly.
yeah, he's the singer and the co-writer,
Oh,
and
very
he
cool.
also is the creator of Delirium.
Was it kind of was it one of those moments where you're kind of nervous to meet him? And
Yeah, there's so many emotions because I was such a big fan, and he was such a cool guy. He took the time to actually talk to me, and actually asked him some real questions, and he just answered me, and it was just really cool that. So I was able to get some guidance, like a little mentorship. So anybody who's out there who's wanting to DJ or write music, you know, and it's you know, if it's in your heart to do it and you have something to say, absolutely, you know, don't let anybody stop you or, you know, keep you from doing that, because, you know, you'll find that you can get great joy out of it. And a lot of, you know, it's like therapy for me. Like when I used to go dancing at Icon, I mean, I'd see Jacob there. It was just, you know, the music was therapeutic. You know, it made me feel better about life. It took the weight off my chest.
well,
And so-
you would see him there, leaned up against his Camaro with his leather jacket on, huh?
Yeah, that was Jacob. Yeah, his chest was freshly shaved, you know, and he's waiting
Oh, okay.
on the chicks, man.
Had a gold chain on.
No, it was a silver chain.
Okay.
I think he was a werewolf. Or I don't know what it was, but anyway.
He's Silver Cross.
Silver
Silver
Cross.
Cross.
That's right.
Well, he's modest, is what he is.
Yeah.
Good guy. Yeah.
So yeah, the advice would be just to do what you do, and you know, look me up. I'm on Facebook, Jamison White. You can hit me up and message me, and if you have any questions about DJing, my door is always open. I'm willing to help anybody. And you know, I just feel like it's something that should be shared and passed along. You know,
kind of the knowledge, past knowledge.
absolutely
To somebody
Yeah,
else.
the music to be shared with other people. Music is something that you don't own. Music is something to be shared, I feel.
You can
I
hit
think-
me up on Facebook too for any music production tips.
And you should. This man knows a lot about music and writing music. He's been doing it for 20 years, and he has a lot of things, a lot of knowledge and information. So
Yeah, very cool. And plug one more thing there, Jameson. You've actually done the retro prom, which is going to be coming up here in Tulsa, right?
yeah, I've done that quite a few times. This is probably, I think it's 21st year. Some friends of mine actually started that back in 1999 or 2001. I can't remember exactly, but anyway, so it's The 80s prom is what you're talking about, and it's a big, huge dance party to where everybody dresses up in their favorite 80s outfits, and they come and they dance, and it's all 80s music provided by live DJs that mix all the 80s that you can, throw a stick at. So actually, I've done 6 of the 20-something shows that they've done. So I haven't done them every year, but every few years they ask me to come out because they
Right.
rotate DJs. So
Yeah,
it was a lot of fun.
You'll come in and stuff. Very cool. And can people still get tickets for that or?
Yeah, they sure can. Actually, if you give me just a second, I can pull that up on my Facebook page for 80s Prom, and I can plug that for my dear friend Rob Robertson, DJ Robbo, who actually owns a bar called Starlight, and you can get drinks there, which is cool. So here he is here. Just give me a second.
He's pulling up right now, everybody.
Right now on my phone as we speak, I'm going in here and trying to squint and see.
Via the power of the
Prom for
internet.
this year. It's going to be April 25th, 2020. You can catch live DJs there as well as 80s music. Maybe a little bit of the early EDM music will be played. So tickets are available through. If you go to Facebook and look up 80s Prom, and it'll pull up the event and where you can get tickets for that.
I think you can look at Cain's ballroom too.
Oh, Cain's Ballroom, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because it's hosted at Cain's every year.
And something to say about Cain's real quick. Cain's has hosted a lot of shows, but they've done a lot of EDM shows like Crystal Method and a lot of famous DJs. A lot of dubstep artists have been there. Diplo, I know, and Steve Aoki and whatnot. So a great venue to hear some really good music.
Awesome. Very cool. And once again, guys, definitely check out my man, Jacob Proctor. And he's also the producer of this podcast as well. So, I always appreciate all of your tireless work for doing that. I know I'm always hitting you up midday.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so he's actually the guy that mixes. So
right on, brother.
if you're ever upset with the mixes or how anything sounds, please direct all your hate mail to DJ Jam is on. No, not really. No, Jacob's a great guy, and I appreciate all the work that you do. And you are fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, but anyways, yep. So definitely check out Jacob Proctor on the Spotify. You can check out Go to the End, his second album. You can check out Space Junk. You can hit either one of these gentlemen up on Facebook. Jacob Proctor on Facebook. Is it Jamison White on Facebook?
Just Jamison White on Facebook.
Jamison White on Facebook.
I'll be in my jiu-jitsu gi. That was my first lesson.
You just started jiu-jitsu. Can you kind of touch on that a little bit?
Well, yeah, actually, our cousin Red Cloud NQ on the Kiowa side, he's a purple belt, and he's also a registered instructor to teach Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So I've actually started that. So
very cool. Awesome. Well, yep, definitely hit up either one of these gentlemen. You can follow this podcast, the Needless Potatoes Podcast, on Facebook. You can follow it on Instagram. You can listen to it on Spotify, YouTube, Breaker. You can't listen to it on Apple Music because, again, they won't return my emails. But, that's okay. I'm not bitter about that breakup.
I hate apples anyway.
Yeah. Definitely, go out there, eat.
No. If you're Apple and you're listening, I love Apple.
Yeah, Apple, please send us money and put me on your streaming service, but give me money first, because otherwise.
Yes.
Money is always good. And speaking of money, you can also donate. You can go to anchor.com/Jesse Whitedeer, and you can look up the Needless Potatoes Podcast, and you can donate some money if you'd like. And if you don't, that's cool too. But hey, guys, Jacob, Jamison, thanks for joining me on this podcast. You guys are both awesome. And yep, and you guys stay tuned, and we'll keep pumping out these episodes. So, yep, thanks so much.